The Echoes, Life After Childhood Trauma. This is episode 2, The Weather Inside, Living with Emotional Climate Change. This episode explores the inner weather that follows trauma, the fog, the pressure, the storms that move through without warning. Please listen with care and pause if you need to. You can check below for all the connections to various helplines if you feel a little bit overwhelmed as you're listening to this podcast. Have a look at the show notes and the links in this podcast. Thanks for joining me. It starts quietly. A change in the air. You don't notice the weather turning until you feel the cold. One moment the world feels passable. Coffee, work, errands, a steady hum of survival, and then somehow everything just thickens. The air grows heavy, words lose their colour, and the simplest tasks can feel like wading through fog. And for me, it rarely begins with a thought. It starts somewhere in my body. A subtle pressure in my chest, a tightening behind my eyes, a slowing down of everything. It's like a weather front rolling in. And the strange thing is, I don't always see it happen. It's quite sneaky. You know, when you've lived through trauma, the weather can change long before you realise you've stepped into the storm. Something small, a word, a tone, even a smell, passes by like a breeze and your body reacts long before your mind catches up. By the time you notice, it's already raining, and that's the disorientating part of not knowing you're in it until you start to feel cold. Inside those days, I move differently. I go quiet, smaller, the shutters come down. It's a kind of preparation, the body pulling in its edges. It's as though my mind says, stay still until it passes, while some older part of me says, don't you dare move, the wind will tear you apart. So I do what many of us do. I bunker down, emotionally speaking, of course. It's like locking myself in a cellar, a self-made shelter, safe from the storm, yes, but sealed off from sunlight, warmth and nourishment. Nothing gets in, but nothing gets out either. And the cost of that kind of protection is enormous, because while you're down there, hidden behind thick walls of self-containment, life carries on above ground. People laugh, plans are made, music plays somewhere in the distance. You can almost hear it through the concrete. You tell yourself, you'll come out soon, once it's safe. But the longer you wait, the harder the door becomes to open. Safety becomes isolation. And there are times when something shifts. For me, it's often sudden. The equivalent of sunlight breaking through cloud after weeks of grey. It might be a laugh that escapes before I can stop it, or a moment in a session when someone else's truth hits home so precisely it cracks the surface of my own. And then for a second, I'm above the storm, looking down rather than drowning inside it, and the air clears, everything feels possible again. It doesn't last forever, but it doesn't need to. It's a reminder that the weather isn't permanent. It moves. It always moves. Inside the therapy journey, I see the same pattern play out again and again. People arrive drenched, though they don't always know it. They talk about exhaustion, low motivation, irritation, guilt. And they tell me, I don't even know why I feel like this. And I recognize it, that unspoken confusion, because when you've lived in unpredictable weather since childhood, you stop noticing the rain. You just think, this is how the world feels. I've sat with so many people who believed they were born under dark skies. That sadness was temperament, not trauma. That vigilance was personality, not protection. Learning to navigate storms without ever calling them storms, and once that pattern sets in, leaving the cellar feels unthinkable. Because the storm is awful, yes, but at least it's familiar. What I find most heartbreaking and most human is how ingenious those defenses are. The mind builds them with care. It learns how to shut doors quietly so no one hears. It learns how to smile convincingly while the roof rattles above. It learns how to perform fine until the body collapses from the weight of all that pretending. And yet, even in those moments, I see something miraculous. A system still trying to keep itself alive. That's what I try to remember when the weather turns in me. This isn't failure, it's fidelity. The body remembering what once kept me safe. The truth I wish people spoke aloud more often is this: depression, anxiety, numbness, they're not random malfunctions, they're weather patterns written by history. They form around childhood events we didn't have words for, and many of us never realized we were traumatized because what happened to us didn't look like the stories we were told were trauma. Not necessarily violence, no real headlines, just years of emotional frost, subtle neglect, constant unpredictability. So we grow up thinking this is just how life feels, but it isn't. You weren't born in a storm, you were shaped by one. And once you understand that, everything changes. Begin to realize you don't have to stay in it. You can learn to read the sky. And that's what awareness does. It gives you a barometer. It doesn't stop the storms from coming, but it helps you recognize when the pressure is dropping, when to seek shelter, and when it's safe to come out again. I often tell my clients and remind myself that healing isn't learning to control the weather. It's learning to trust that we can survive it without hiding from life. And over the time, the storms still come, but they feel less like punishment and more just like passing seasons. And every time the sun returns, it's a little easier to believe it always will. If you're listening to this and some part of you recognizes these patterns, the quiet retreat, the exhaustion that feels older than you are, the sense that you've been living underground for years, you're not alone. Many of us learn to survive by building cellars, and many of us are still learning that we can climb out even while the sky is grey. There's no rush. No need to run towards a light, just notice when it shifts, when a laugh escapes, or when you suddenly feel the air on your face. That's the weather changing. That's your nervous system remembering that it can move again. Before we finish, I want to say this clearly because people really do. You don't have to earn your sunlight. You don't have to justify why you struggle on blue sky days, and you're not weak because your body still believes the storm might come back. You're human. You learn to live inside unpredictable weather, and somehow you're still here, still looking up. That's not brokenness. That's endurance. That's beauty right there. So for now, let's just stay here together in this small clearing. The air's lighter and the worst has passed for the moment. You don't have to do anything with that truth, just feel it. We all have our weather, and sometimes recognition is enough to change the climate inside.